Hello there, and welcome to my hopefully simple and short tutorial on how to download, install, and run Orbiter Spaceflight Simulator 2016. So first off, we need to know where to find it. So hahanapin natin sa internet. You can actually just Google it. You type Orbiter Spaceflight Simulator 2016 and it will bring you to this page. No? The URL, if you just want to type out the URL, is up there. You can see it. It's orbit.medphys.ucl.ac.uk. This is actually hosted by the University College London in London, UK, because the creator of Orbiter, Mr. Martin Schweiger, is in fact a physicist. He is a professor of physics in UCL, in that university. And sometime in the late 1990s, towards the year 2000, I guess he was a bit frustrated at the availability of space simulations, no? Yung mga off-the-shelf. Well, Microsoft did have a space simulator that they released sometime, I think in 1992, 1993. It was pretty good, but not to the liking siguro, or the it didn't have the level of accuracy and precision that Mr. Schweiger was looking for. So, knowing programming in C++, he actually wrote his own program, and this became Orbiter as we know it today. So, in effect, Orbiter has been around for over 20 years now, and this is still the very same URL to get Orbiter ever since it got started, no? orbit.medphys.ucl.ac.uk. So from this page, you can clearly see that you've got a menu on top. So you can select what do you want to do. In this case, we're going to download. There's also a download button here, by the way. This donate button is, of course, if you want to, because Orbiter is actually free. Pero one other way to put it is donationware siya. Meaning if you feel that this program is excellent and you're very happy with it and you feel like donating to Martin Schweiger, then by all means, no, donate. Kasi it helps it helps him in maintaining the program. Although we're not in a position to dictate to him what to do next. No? Although you can do suggestions kasi in the span of 20 years, you can imagine, nagkaroon na ng community behind Orbiter. This is a group of users around the world who, with the tools made available by Martin Schweiger, were able to create add-ons and modifications to Orbiter to enhance certain usability features. No? Either new spacecraft, new celestial bodies, new ways of doing things. Kasi it's actually, at one point, Orbiter was actually a closed program, meaning only Dr. Schweiger could actually modify the core program. But as of last year, Martin Schweiger announced that he is making Orbiter open source. So actually open source na siya. And in fact, if I have time towards the end of this video, we can try to navigate to GitHub, to the GitHub repository for the yung source files for Orbiter. If you are of the programming bent, no? Kung kayo, literate in C++, you might be interested in really getting to know the inner workings of Orbiter via its source code and compile your own version, no? Your own branch. Anyway, most of you probably are not programmers and you're just here to get Orbiter, no? And install it. So yun yung gagawin natin ngayon. So I'm going to help you navigate through these menus. By the way, ang isang important dito na I want to emphasize is itong links. Puntahan din nyo to kasi this is also very useful. If you go to links, you will see Orbiter-related sites that might feature mga add-ons that are really nice. Ito is pinaka-favorite ko, itong Althea Aerospace. And of course, Dan's Orbiter page, and I will explain why later. Pero down here, ito yung gusto kong i-call ng attention ninyo, no? Let me check something here. Yeah, etong useful space links. Because these space links are actually going to teach you how to launch a rocket, fly it out into space in low Earth orbit, for instance, and maybe create an escape trajectory out of the Earth's orbit and go elsewhere in the solar system. Kasi by the way, Orbiter basically is just a solar system simulator. It does not feature interstellar travel. Hanggang solar system lang yung pwedeng puntahan. Okay? So ayan, balikan ko ulit ito. So yeah, especially itong dalawa, yung unang mga links, yung basics of space flight and rocket and space technology. It will really help you out if you are at a total loss kung paano ba nag-work ang mga spacecraft, paano ba naglo-launch ng rocket. Talagang nandito ang parang Space Flight 101. Tuturuan kayo niyan. So balik tayo sa taas. So let's go to the downloads page kasi para i-explain ko properly what's gonna happen. So you will see 4 buttons. Itong download mirror 1, which is Europe, and 3 USA mirrors. I think from the Philippines, any of the 3 USA mirrors is the fastest if you want to download. I'm here in the Middle East and we're closer to Europe, so this is what I use if I in case I need to re-download it somehow. This is what I use. Pero you can use any of the download mirrors, no. Let's try, let's say the USA mirror 2, just to let you see what the page looks like after you click on one of those buttons. As you can see, medyo slower for me. May page na nag-pop up dito, parang ad page. Wala yatang ad blocker. Ayan. Uy, lumalabas ulit yung redirect. Europe na lang para lang i-demonstrate ko kasi mas malapit nga ako sa Europe eh. So, dito tayo. You will see these 2 options. For most people, para hindi na kayo mahirapan, like what is said here, recommended for general users, you download the Msi Installer. This means you're going to download an executable, yung parang setup file, so that you don't have to worry about unzipping and yung parang unarchiving or unrarring a container file like a zip or a rar file, diba? Yung mga people na ayaw ng ganon or tinatamad, you can just download the executable. Pero bakit dalawa yung button? Because you can either download a torrent of the file or a direct there's a link to a direct download from their servers. When you download a torrent file, you're not downloading the actual installation file itself. A torrent file basically allows you to with a string of other users around the world, not only to download, but it's a form of file sharing. It actually speeds up download times, because of the fact that if several users are like streaming it upload, parang nagtutulungan yon para bumilis. So if you're familiar with torrent use and you have BitTorrent, for instance, then you can try downloading the torrent file for it and then download the installer via torrent. However, kung okay naman yung speed ng internet ninyo, mabilis naman, you can just opt for the direct download from the server. Pero mind you, the installer is 2.5 gigabytes. Kaya nga yung iba, kaya siguro nag-opt ng torrent. Kasi one feature din ng torrent, lalo na kung medyo unstable yung internet ninyo, is kung naputol yung download, and the next time you are connected again to the internet, it will just continue to download where it stopped, or when it stopped or ceased to download, no? And hopefully, walang mako-corrupt na mga files within the container file or the installer file. So, it's up to you. Either do a torrent or HTTP download. The end product would be the same. You will end up with a file called Orbiter2016 exe, which is 2.5 gigabytes big. If you choose to download the zip installer, it is assumed you're familiar with container files like yung zipped file. And I will demonstrate what it looks like later kasi I've already downloaded both, no? So I will show you, no? Kunyari, select ko muna yung Msi installer or yung zip installer. Of course, the whole download process will happen. You know how to download files naman, di ba? And I will show you my downloads folder and show you eto yung mga na-download ko nandito sa window na ito. So as you can see, I hope makikita ninyo, no? Papalakihin ko para everybody can see it more clearly. You see, dalawa yung file ko dito na may Orbiter 2016. So yung exe file, yan yung sinasabi ko na you can just run it, and it will automatically install it. But it will first ask you where you want to put it, diba? So you must know or have a familiarity with directory or folder structures para hindi kayo mawala, you won't lose your installation kung saan nyo in-install, kasi this is a common problem with people who are not familiar with folders in Windows. For instance, they ran an installer but actually they couldn't figure out kung saan in-install nung installer yung kanilang program. Pero very very straightforward naman. You just have to declare the path, no, of where you want to install it. So ito sa exe file. For the yung zip file, this is what it looks like. So I'm actually going to open that zip file now. And you can't see the zip file because I'm actually using RAR and the window is not up. So I'm going to declare in OBS, I'm going to declare what's this? A new window capture. Let's see kung mag-work ito. And saan na siya? WinRAR. Ayan. So hopefully nakikita niyo yung WinRAR, no? So when you open up the WinRAR window, ito yung makikita inside it. And you see nandito yung mga folders. There are 14 of them and several root files, including Orbiter.exe and Orbiter.ng.exe. Dapat yung dalawang executable nandyan talaga yan, and some config files and DLLs. Pero there are 14 folders. And of course, if you're familiar already, I don't have to explain this, pero you extract this to, again, a certain path that it's easy to locate. For instance, C:/ in your C drive, Orbiter2016 or Orb2016. In this case, I already extracted this to a particular folder that I will show you now. So let's close this for now. And then I'm going to find my Orbiter installation, yung Orb2016. So hopefully, magde-declare ulit tayo ng bagong window in OBS. Window capture, existing capture, and pwede pala sanang sinubstitute ko yan. Anyway, let's see if it will actually let me show you that. Okay. Ayan. So, eto na yan. Yung window with the files. 14 na folders. I'll make it larger a bit. And teka, balikan natin yung OBS so I can adjust this. Sobrang laki naman siguro. Yeah, just call it yung size, not too big. So yan, as you can see here, natatabunan na ako. Anyway, ayan na yung mga files. And then once you scroll, you see, you might wonder bakit dalawa yung executable? Bakit may Orbiter and may Orbiter_ng? Ganito yan. Through the years, no, Orbiter, by the way, is using its own proprietary graphics engine developed by Dr. Schweiger himself. Pero many years later, of course, as games evolved, gumaganda yung graphics, diba? Gumagamit na ng mga graphic cards, accelerated graphics, graphics chipsets like NVIDIA and ano nga ba tong isa? Radeon, yung ATI. So, nagka-clamor yung ibang mga users na sana mag-take advantage yung Orbiter ng mga ganitong technologies. So, when DirectX 9 was released, talagang very sophisticated na yung graphics engine technology of different game engines. So, Orbiter was still, parang very primitive at that. So, may mga users who helped out in creating a kind of a plugin that will allow certain functionality of DirectX 9, Direct 3D. So, yung D3D9 na parang plugin, if you download that and install it, wag yung Orbiter.exe na ordinary install yung i-run ninyo. You have to run Orbiter.ng. Siguro yung NG, basically, it means new generation graphics, di ba? Kaya nga NG siya. So again, a reminder, yung red icon is the regular Orbiter, which will still use your graphics card. I will show you later na kailangan nyo pa rin talagang i-indicate na you are using like a dedicated graphics card if you have an NVIDIA card. Pero yung Orbiter NG, when you run it, you have to first, in the configuration, select the D3, D9 plugin in order for the more sophisticated graphics effects, no? Yung mga shader, ganon, will be applied. Kaya yung iba nalilito dito which one they should run. You will only run Orbiter NG again if you have the what did I say, yung D3, D9. Diba si Samuel, I believe, mentioned that in one of our group chats here in Space One. So ayan, no? So I guess we can run it now para makita ninyo naka-install na to lahat. And just to give a rundown of the folders, kung ano bang meaning ng mga folders na to, ito yung isang folder that I really want you to check and look up kasi it contains the documentation for Orbiter, di ba? Very important. Ito yung Orbiter PDF would be the main Orbiter manual or file. You can print it out if you want to be like easy to read or just read it as a PDF. Meron dito mga specific vessel files and these are the spacecraft that comes with Orbiter. For instance, Orbiter comes with a space shuttle, no? It's not very sophisticated. Basically, it is a physics simulator of the space shuttle, of how it flies. It's not a true yung parang system simulation of the space shuttle. You don't have a cockpit na very detailed where you can really, parang operate the systems of the space shuttle. Hindi siya ganon. There are add-ons, no, for Orbiter made by other users that are more sophisticated. I'm just not sure kung meron ng version for 2016 Orbiter, pero parang meron, pero hindi lang ako familiar or parang hindi ko na-download recently. Okay, so that's Atlantis, yung default or parang built-in Atlantis space shuttle ng Orbiter. Yan yung manual niya. So you see, may specific manual talaga for the space shuttle and its MMU. Kasi, once you get the shuttle, for instance, in low Earth orbit, may maganda siyang pwedeng paglaruan, yung MMU or the Manned Maneuvering Unit, which is actually, it's obsolete. The Manned Maneuvering Unit was designed to be a means by which astronauts can scoot around the space shuttle or whatever spacecraft while in orbit. This was first used and demonstrated by the astronaut Bruce McCandless. Meron siyang very memorable and iconic picture, nakikita nyo na parang may astronaut lang na nagfo-float above the Earth. Yan yung first use ng MMU dati. However, the use of the MMU parang hindi siya ganun ka-practical. It's a nice little vehicle na parang it's your own little spacecraft actually. Pero for practical purposes like building the ISS, you need a more practical kind of maneuvering unit. And yan yung ginagamit ngayon, which is called the SAFER system. No, yung parang malaking backpack. Hindi siya as sophisticated as the MMU, pero it does the job. Pero this particular simulator has an MMU and you can play around with it para makita nyo na hindi biro mag-maneuver in space. No, because you have to think in 6 degrees of freedom. No, and you have translational, and you will learn all about this when you start using Orbiter, yung translational thrusters and rotational thrusters. No, so you really have to, it's a great introduction actually to the complexities of maneuvering yourself in space. Okay, so meron din ditong Delta Glider, very important. Etong Delta Glider, sasabihin ko lang as of now na hindi siya totoong vehicle. The physics are accurate, no? However, there are certain aspects of it na hindi pa nag-i-exist. We want it to exist one day, pero hindi pa nag-i-exist. For instance, what fuel does it use? It uses a certain magical kind of propellant. No? Parang, think of the standard propellant systems like maybe oxygen and hydrogen, pero ang efficiency niya is 10 or 20 times better. No? Kasi you can fit it in a small fuel tank and oxidizer tank. So ganito ka high-tech or parang super futuristic yung Delta Glider. Or it could be methane, I don't know. And it even has a scramjet engine which you can operate at very high altitude to achieve hypervelocities. So may mga systems talaga siya na medyo futuristic. So it's not an existing craft. Pero it's very useful to learn about the dynamics of spaceflight. Kaya talagang it is included in the package. May mga sophisticated versions of the Delta Glider that are more realistic in terms of its operation and systems, made by an add-on group called the Altea Aerospace. Nakita niyo yun dun sa links, di ba, in the UCL Orbiter site. Yung Altea Aerospace, later you'll get intrigued by that kasi nag-develop sila ng more sophisticated versions of the Delta Glider. Napakaganda. Although science fiction talaga kasi, again, the propellants being used by the Delta Glider don't exist yet. Another thing that the Delta Glider possesses na parang hindi ka panipaniwala for now is parang a universal heat shield that can withstand any form of yung re-entry heating. Parang super powerful siya. Parang kahit na i-subject mo yung Delta Glider into any orientation upon re-entry, hindi siya nasusunog, no? Which is wrong. Kaya nga yung Altea Aerospace ng mga Delta Gliders and their spacecraft, they follow the rules of physics. If you enter the Earth's atmosphere too steeply, it will burn up and you will die. No? Mas realistic yun na add-on. Pero by default, the Delta Glider is a great training tool. No? Itong Dragonfly, it's actually an orbital, parang forklift. No? Parang siya. It is used to assemble space stations. And you will learn all about that when you get into the orbiter itself. No? Teka, dock tayo. Ang wala ditong folder, dito pala. Ito, one interesting folder for budding developers and programmers is yung SDK, the Software Development Kit, where if you have programming prowess, you can actually add stuff to enhance Orbiter, or maybe you want to make your own rocket. Why not? You know C++ and want to build your own rocket, you know a bit of 3D modeling, you can model your dream rocket in Orbiter. Diba? Through the SDK, and may documentation yung SDK dito, yung mga API or application programming interfaces, nandyan lahat plus references. May resources, may samples, may utilities, everything is there. So it's really a complete package, no, itong Orbiter. That's why for 20 years now talagang masarap siya gamitin if you know how to. So ayan, without further ado, we're going to run Orbiter para makita ninyo initially anong itsura nung parang tinatawag na yung launcher. Kasi it has a launcher before you can begin simulation. Yung parang via the launcher, you can actually configure Orbiter. You can select the kind of graphics display that you're using. Pwede nga kasi yata siya sa multi-monitor system, but you have to be very careful in the selection of those graphics. So we'll try that out right now. But first, I forgot to do something, so bear with me. I need to edit something, and I will show you why I need to edit that. I'm going to edit it. Itong Orbiter config file. I'm just going to check whether dapat i-false ko to para hindi siya mag-demo. Okay. So I hope. Okay, I'm going to run the launcher now, and you're not gonna see it. Kaya again, I will declare it as a window here in OBS, so hopefully it will pop up. Okay, so nagpakita pa, hindi siya napakita. So I think I need to configure one of the windows here to show Orbiter itself, Orbiter Launchpad. Ayan, so hopefully we will see it. Yan, nakikita niyo na, no? Here it is, the Orbiter Launchpad, or it's essentially what we could call a ano nga ba to? Yeah, a launcher. Teka, saan nga ba? Magkakadoble-doble na to. Bakit dalawa? That's weird. Anyway, the important thing is you see it, right? So ito na yung launcher natin, and punta muna tayo sa video because this is very important. So I'm in video here. Ito yung sinelect ko na default na width and height because we're going to run it in a window. No? You can run it full screen, but I first advise you to first run it using a modest resolution kasi hindi nyo pa sure kung kaya nga ng system ninyo. And go here on top, yung 3D device. Most likely by default, ang makikita nyo yung Intel chipset ang isa-select niya by default. I-change nyo yan kasi if you have a dedicated graphics card, mabagal yung display ninyo kung Intel chipset or the onboard graphics chip ang gagamitin, no? Mas maganda you select yung Direct3D T and L HAL, no? Yan ang gamitin ninyo, Direct3D T and L HAL or HAL. Pwede nyo i-click yung tri-stencil buffer, pero i-try nyo muna to with an aspect ratio of 16:9, which is most screens nowadays, ito yung ginagamit. Yung ibang gaming screen 16:10, pero most are 16:9. Wag yung 4:3 kasi that is the old, yung medyo narrow na monitors. So ito tayo 16:9 with a width of 1280 by 720. So and isa pa, punta tayo sa parameters. Itong refresh rate ng MFD, I usually set it at, instead of 1 second, mabagal yung 1 second to refresh a display. So, okay naman either 0.1 or 0.02. So, 0.1, depende sa how fast your computer is. Pero 0.1 for me is good. No? And leave all the others by default. Yan. Pwede nyong gawing unlimited yung fuel, pero I do not advise that kasi the physics will all be wrong. No? Mas maganda yung limited yung fuel, meaning as the craft depletes its fuel, gumagaan actually yung inyong vehicle, di ba? That's how it is supposedly. Okay. Para talagang maano niyo. May mga magaganda pa ditong mga options that we don't have time to discuss right now, but if you are into orbital mechanics, these are actually quite interesting and important. You can model non-spherical gravity sources kasi, for instance, the Earth, may mga density variations yung planet, no? May mga anong term nila diyan? Mass inhomogeneities or something like that. Yung tipong may mga concentrations of mass on the planet Earth. Kaya hindi even actually yung pull ng gravity in some parts while the orbit. Kaya yan kayang i-model ng orbiter yun, yung mga slight perturbations because of those mass, yung parang, what I'm saying basically is may part ng Earth na parang mas dense, kunyari yung concentration ng material like yung mantle, no? Kaya, parang pag nag-orbit yung spacecraft around the Earth, yung part na yun, baka parang mas greater ng konti, minuscule amount, pero I mean, kayang i-compute niyan through yung Newtonian dynamics. Kayang i-compute yan ng orbiter. You've got radiation pressure, you've got gravity gradient torque. Again, I don't have time to explain all that. And atmospheric wind effects. Pwede dapat natin i-check yan. Pero no, if you're learning orbiter, dapat naka-uncheck lahat yan ng perturbations. I-uncheck nyo na lang muna. I think we're ready. And now, we go to the scenarios. So, you have many scenarios here. And, I think the best way to learn orbiter talaga is to jump right in and try to fly the Delta Glider. Kasi, lalo na kung mahilig kayo sa games, it's a great introduction kasi parang you're just playing any other game. So, you find the Delta Glider folder and select yung DGS ready for takeoff. Yan yung i-advise ko na you select. Yung DGS ready for takeoff. So, the scramjet Delta Glider is ready for takeoff from runway 33 of the shuttle landing facility of the Kennedy Space Center. So, yung malaking runway, yung where the space shuttles land at Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center. So, you're going to take off using the main engines and climb to 10 kilometers. Then you can even try the scramjet engines. And you can attempt to actually enter Earth orbit if you want to, kung medyo na-learn nyo na yung basics. Pero walang pressure dito. Talagang para lang ma-feel ninyo yung flying around kasi this is also a flight simulator, by the way. Orbiter is also a flight simulator to a limited extent. So you can fly the Delta Glider like an airplane. It would actually be better if you have a joystick. Kaya tingnan nyo, may joystick tab dito. So if you have a joystick, na once Windows detects your joystick, it will pass on the parameters to Orbiter and you can select your joystick here. And you can set settings like the dead zone and throttle saturation and so on. So, maganda kasi you can just fly the Delta Glider like an ordinary aircraft. No? Pero you can fly it via a keyboard. The important thing is, nalilito na ako ngayon. I think the key, if you're using a laptop, The laptop must have a numeric keypad, otherwise it would be very awkward to control Orbiter. Kasi you'd have to use function keys for that, right? Yung FN key. So mas maganda, may dedicated numeric keypad yung laptop ninyo if you're using a laptop. If you've got a full-size keyboard for your PC, no problem. That's how you fly Orbiter, using the numeric keypad, no? Okay. So, balikan natin scenarios. We're going to use DGS ready for takeoff and launch Orbiter. So, I'm launching it now. So, let's see what happened to OBS. Nawala yung ating launcher. And now, yeah. This is what you're supposed to see. I'm going to disable these screens. Dami ko na kasing mga screens na nakapatong dito. And now I'm going to open up a new window showing teka, capture, add existing, capture 10, and show Orbiter itself. Ayan. Teka, tatabunan tayo. Ayan. So here is what you will see upon loading that scenario, yung Delta Glider ready for takeoff. You're seeing the view from outside of the craft, the red Delta Glider, and you're seeing a runway. The graphics are pretty okay, no? Hindi siya that exciting, but it's still usable. And you've got some buildings over there on the right side. So the first thing I want you to do now is, if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can actually adjust the zooming. So I'll show you how that happens, no? So look at this. May menu nga pala dyan sa taas that pops up when you move the mouse there on top. Pero look, I can also do this. Ayan, I'm zooming into the Delta Glider. If you press right click on the mouse, you can now rotate your view also. Takes some getting used to. Uy, nandun yung VAB, or the Vehicle Assembly Building of the Kennedy Space Center. It's over there in the distance. Rotate here. There. So let's get inside the spacecraft. How do you do that? You press the F1 key. Okay, so let's press F1. Okay, the first thing you will see is a virtual cockpit, which is not all that useful. It's graphically pleasing because, again, if you press the right mouse button and you scroll around, it looks like an aircraft, no? It looks like the interior of an aircraft. And actually, these buttons actually work, I think. They're clickable. Teka lang. Ayun, nagwo-work talaga siya. It's quite nice, but I prefer the other panel view, which is simpler, and actually it doesn't really impact on the graphics much. Pero you can zoom out din dito and see the other systems, which are also clickable. So it's quite a great job by Dr. Schweiger, no, when he did this. But actually, he had the help of some other 3D modeler to do all this 3D work. So see, you can, all these buttons actually work. That's great. Pero if you press F8, you will be brought to this view. And this is the view that I like kasi less cluttered, no? Oh, teka, kakagulo tayo. Yan. It's less cluttered, and everything that I need is here, yung mga basics that I need for my flight, no, to take off. So first, there's a map on the right, MFD, or the multifunction display, and the orbit MFD on the left. So right now, you don't have to learn anything about this, pero you can select and use surface, parang standard HUD display, which has the data for altitude and speed or velocity, then the climb rate, nandyan lahat, atmospheric data. So magandang information to when we are flying the the Delta Glider. So ito yung map display. One thing you can do here is zoom. ZM here means zoom. So you can zoom. We are there in Cape Canaveral. May mga nagmo-move na yellow crosses on screen. That's the ISS on its orbit, no? And then there's another spacecraft in Havana Spaceport in Cuba. Interesting, no? You can actually jump to another spacecraft within the simulator in this scenario. Pero our focus is on the Delta Glider, which is here in Cape Canaveral. Mag-zoom pa tayo konti pa. So yeah, nandyan siya. So at least you have a good way to orient yourself. And there's more to this map display, no, that you will discover later. But right now, how do we get the Delta Glider off the ground? Simply by pressing the plus key on the numeric keypad. It will increase the thrust to 100%. Pero you will notice something. If you let go of your finger from the plus key, mag-off siya. So what do? Well, you press a key combo to increase thrust, and that's what we're going to do now. You press the control key, diba? May control key yung ating keyboard, at saka yung plus key in the numeric keypad, and that will increase your thrust. Let's do that now. Now we're increasing the thrust. Did you notice something? Tahimik na tahimik, no? That is because by default, Orbiter does not have sound. Yan, nagugulat yung iba when they first install. Nasaan na yung sound? Wala talagang sound ng Orbiter by default. And I will show you in a while kung paano lagyan ng sound ng Orbiter. Pero let's take off at around, ang TAS natin is around 200 meters per second. Siguro comfortable na yan. Ayan. So I'm using the numeric keypad to control my flying now. So now we have taken off. I have to press G. Nagpa-flash na yung tatlong square sa gitna, meaning the landing gear is transitioning. And pag wala na siya, it means na fully retracted na, and now we're flying. If you want to see the flight, press F1 again, and you're now seeing the craft from external view, and now we're flying over Florida. And now we're going to go to the ocean part. Ayan. Of course, if you keep flying like this in the atmosphere, maubusan kayo ng fuel, and you can see the fuel gauge up there in the upper left-hand corner, no? Yung propellant. So let's try to climb up to a certain altitude so that I can show you the scramjet. You can actually operate scramjet engines. So yung 40 dyan on the screen where the circle with the cross is, it means that we're 40 degrees tilted upwards, and you can actually move your view and see na yun nga, 40 degrees nakatilt tayo upwards, climbing up to a very high altitude. Right now in ano nga na ba tong altitude? Our altitude is in kilometers. So we're now 8 kilometers up. Siguro when we reach around 18 kilometers up in the upper atmosphere, I'm going to try and test the scramjet engines. So malapit na. And I'm going to show you another kind of view which is also useful. Hindi siya virtual cockpit, but it also shows some of the controls like the scramjet. And even shows you that if the scramjet is functioning kasi, scram fuel that you can see here will be visible. I mean, you can see progress na gumagamit na siya ng scramjet fuel. Right now, wala pang consumption, no? Kasi hindi ko pa inopen yung scramjet doors. So pressing control up arrow and the other saan na nga ba yan? Scramjet. Hindi ko na ba kailangan i-open? Yeah, automatic na yata dito eh. I don't think I need to open anything. I just need to like turn on scram. And pwede na, malapit na. Konti na lang and I can ito yung scram engine controls. So let's see. Uy, hindi na ako nagiging ng altitude. So let's pitch up more. Actually, hindi na efficient yung aking control surfaces. So what I'm going to do now is to go here and press RCS mode rotation. Teka, ayaw Ayun, rotation mode na tayo. So hopefully, ayan 21 kilometers up na. So let's try and activate the scramjet. Ayun, nakita nyo dito, nagko-consume na siya. Pero yung flow is very slow pa. So and I still have my main propellant on. Pero ang gagawin ko ngayon, since gumagana na yung scramjet, I'll show you that as we level off here, ile-level off ko lang muna yung Delta Glider, no? And I can turn off the main engines and show you na, uy, bumabagal dapat bumibilis yan. Ayan, na-maintain niya. Sige, dagdagan ulit natin ng main propellant para lang kumagat yung scramjet natin. Siguro we need to dive down a bit. We don't have enough velocity for it to be parang magising, no? Kasi kung alam ko kung gising na ng fully yung scramjet, kasi you're going to see thermal effects, no, on the front of the Delta Glider. So wala pa eh. Wala pa ng thermal effects. Pero malakas na yung fuel flow natin. Meaning nagwo-work na. Okay, so pwede ko nang bawasan ulit yung ano natin, main propellant. Tapos iangat ko na ulit yung nose. When you're doing this, don't go below 25 kilometers kasi the atmosphere will be thicker and talagang iinit na ng husto yung ating exterior temperature. Although, parang medyo virtually indestructible naman yung Delta Glider. It's just prudent kasi later when you move on to the Althea aerospace craft, it's very important that you maintain the temperature, no? Outside of the craft. Ayan, parang meron ng konting thermal effects ongoing. Ika-cut off ko na talaga yung main propellant kasi okay na yung ating yung ating scramjet. Ganda na ng function niya. Ayan na, parang nakikita nyo may parang bow-shaped arc dito sa harap. Ayan, umiinit na talaga yung ating craft. And you can see, walang exhaust coming in from the main engines. It's coming from the scramjet below the Delta Glider. And we're at hypersonic velocities. We're traveling at almost 2 kilometers a second na ngayon in terms of the airspeed. Wow. Yan ang aabot na ng 2 kilometers a second. Wow. Really fast. 2,000 meters a second. Really great. So you can actually use this velocity as a stepping stone if you want to reach orbit and save a bit of fuel, no? So it's really great. Kaya nga ang galing nitong Delta Glider with this technology of the scramjet. Anyway, we're going ahead of ourselves here. Wala pa tayo sa space, no? Pero ang point ko is I have to give orbiter sound. So how do I do that? So I need to show you that part. So let's exit muna, Control Q. You can save your flight nga pala anytime if I wanted to go back here. It automatically saves it to something called current state. But this is not permanent kasi current state can be overwritten later if you load another scenario and you exit it, wala na yung previous state ninyo. But you can always go back to your last saved position by clicking on current state. Pero we're totally going to exit the orbiter ngayon. Hindi nyo nga pala nakikita yung current state that I meant. So, I need to activate that window again if it's still visible. Teka, saan na nga ba yun? Yung launcher window. Ayan. So, nakita nyo yung current state. That's the state where when I left off. Again, within orbiter, just press Control S and it will save it in that little folder there called Quick Save. No? Diyan nyo hanapin sa Quick Saves. Right now, I think the Quick Save folder is empty kasi wala tayong Quick Saves. Okay? You can even clear it. Anyway, let's install sound. So, how do you do that? You go to another site. And you can find that site in the main orbiter page, yung link. And I will show you where. So, first, let's exit the launcher. And I'm going to bring back the orbiter site again. Then, hanapin natin yung link na yan. Menu. Oh, wait. Saan nga ba yun? Orbiter home. Punta kayo sa links. Ito. Dan's orbiter page. This is very important. Because in Dan's orbiter's page, you will find ang daming add-on, no? Pero ang pinaka-importanting add-on that you need, punta kayo dito sa download, itong orbiter sound. Okay. You can copy the URL up there to go directly to find this add-on. No? This is orbiter sound. Let me check something here. I have a message. Pero giving you time to look at that URL. So, para alam nyo where to get the sound plugin. So, this is a plugin written by somebody else, a French guy named Dan. No? He has been doing this for many years. Kaya na-refine niya talaga yung It can be a bit complicated in the beginning. Pero once you figure out how to install and operate orbiter sound, you're going to forget about it. You will even forget that orbiter is actually, parang separate item pala tong sound. It runs transparently in the background if you know how to configure it properly, of course. So you download the orbiter sound, and let's do it. So ano bang lumalabas sa screen ko ngayon? So yan, dina-download na niya. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, let's wait. Medyo mabagal pala yung download ko ngayon. Okay, let's just wait for a while. Dapat pala din. Baka meron ba akong Orbiter sound na ano na? Because this is gonna take a while. But actually, this is just a pre-recorded video, so I can actually just pause it right now and then continue off when the download is finished. So I'll just be back later. Teka. And like magic, tapos na yung medyo mabagal na download ko. So ready na siya. So let's go back to Orbiter Sound and I'll just click here and open the file. So eto siya. And I don't know if you can see it. It's not, of course, it's not showing up. So let's create another window for that. Yeah, not that window. Teka, create tayo ng another window here. Ito yun eh. Capture 10. So maybe I can tell it to open RAR. Ayan. Ito yung makikita niyo. So just, find this executable file and run it. So let's I'm going to get this and extract it to my desktop. So yan, extract ko na siya sa desktop ko and I'm going to run it so that you can see what the setup page looks like. Sige. So let's go to to my desktop and run that installer. Sana nga ba yan? Okay. Hanapin niyo yung Orbiter Sound 50 etc setup exe, no? So you will find it, Orbiter Sound na installer, and it might have even the admin only shield, which means that it's going to prevent you to run it kasi parang system file or something like that. But ito na, I hope you see this. This is what you will see when you start installing it, and you have to indicate nasan yung Orbiter install ninyo. In this case, Orb2016 yung ating installation, so I'm going to browse and I'm going to find C and Orb2016. Not this one kasi ito yung earlier ko na install. Ito yung ginagamit natin kanina, Orb216. So that's it, and install. No? Ayan. It will do everything for you. There we go. So may documentation siya kasi nga, as I've told you, medyo it takes a while to use it, pero let's run it, no? Kasi mag-run pa nga pala kayo para ma-configure ninyo yung yan, teka, you don't see it, no? You don't see this window. Ayan, lumabas. Thank you. So, ito yung mga options that you need to check. If you want it to play music, may music siya doon sa kanyang isang folder na create nyo within the Orbiter folder structure, which I showed earlier, diba, during the install and the unzipping. And you can change that music to whatever music you want. Pwede kayong gumawa nga ng playlist for space music, no? Or whatever music, kahit na si Ariana Grande or si Taylor Swift pa yung gusto nyong ilagay dyan, for all I care, no? If you have an MP3. And may mga random radio, we can test that. Random radio chatter.
Are you okay? Yep, man. Yep, just taking a different path.
Stuff like that.
Station Houston on the big loop for Ron on Roberto.
Just to give ambience, diba? Parang nasa space kayo. Yeah. Ito mga random sound clips kasi. Pero ito, mga important ito. Sayang lang until this time, 2022 na, Dance Step still uses numerical input to control the volume. Maganda sana slider na lang, no? Pero numbers pa rin 255 yung highest volume, loudest. Kung gusto nyo i-reduce yan, just select a lower number. Like halfway is 128, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, kayo na bahala dito. Magsa-select. Okay? You can test the sounds. So, kunyari docking. Docking in the space station.
Houston, we show capture and hard dock. Congratulations.
Yan, docking sound yon. Tapos meron ding sound ng air conditioning inside the spacecraft. Pwede nyo i-test yan. Okay. So, save and exit. And now, basically, Orbiter will run with sound. So, let's try that. Teka, alisin natin itong mga to. And I'll run the launcher again. Balik tayo sa Orb2016 and I'll start the launcher. Tingnan nyo, may bagong folder na dito, yung sound. Dito in-install ng Orbiter Sound yung kanyang mga plugins, no? Yung kanyang mga DLL files and everything. And you can even create edit with a sequential editor. Ito yung MP3 folder where you can add how to create your own playlist. Nandito lahat ng mga instructions, no? Hindi nyo pala nakikita yung folder. I'm really sorry. Let's go back to showing you the folders. So, nandito. So, where am I? Ayan. So, dito sa sound, nandito may MP3 and so on. May Orbiter Sound SDK din. So, you can actually, if you have got programming know-how, you can even tweak that if you want. May mga radio, parang certain frequencies that you can tune into the Orbiter radios. May specific na kind of broadcast na mangyayari, mga sound bits. Highly configurable, no? You can play around with that. Pero etong MP3 would be for the in-flight music. Pwede nyo i-edit din yan. May playlist, oh. May M3U playlist dyan. Pwede nyo i-edit for whatever, sounds that you would like. Pero let's run Orbiter. Yan ang pinaka-importante ngayon. We will do the same flight again, take off, pero with sound. We're in the launcher again. So we're going to select yung Delta Glider ready for takeoff. And let's see what happens now.
Welcome aboard Orbiter Sound 5.0.
Okay, may may parang female voice pa doon. Narinig niya yan? Welcome to Orbiter Sound 0. Teka.
Expected time is 3 minutes. Copy. Go for pressurization.
Galing, no? May mga sound bits. Teka, ba't nawala? Ayun. Yan na ulit ang Orbiter. Okay, and it has sound. May mga random random na mga sound clips and bits. So we're going to get into the cockpit. Rinig nyo? Yung air conditioning sound nandiyan na. And when I turn on the engine, tingnan nyo, ang maririnig ninyo would be the thrusting sound. Let's do that now. Parang game na talaga siya kasi may sound na. Then let's take off. Ayaw ko mag-take off, ha? Ayan. And gear up. Spacebar to get rid of that message from Dan. Ayan.
Gear up.
Nagsasalita pa. Gear up. One feature na hindi alam ng iba, you can actually teach physics with Orbiter by doing this. Kung tayo sa menu, may mga tinatawag ditong displays. So, pwede nyo tingnan yung forces, body force vectors. So, ito yung drag, ito yung thrust, L is lift, and G is the force of gravity in newtons, kilonewtons. No? And it's dynamic. Look, kung iaangat ko yung nose ng spacecraft, yung lift in newtons increases. Ang galing, ha? If I turn off the engine, nawala yung thrust. Dagdagan natin ng konting thrust, nag-i-increase na yung T. So it's a great way to teach, no? It's a teaching tool talagang Orbiter. It's really great. Galing. Hindi nga pala nag-pop up yung window na yun kasi hindi tayo naka-full screen view kaya hindi nyo makita yung small window which allowed me to do this on this display. Pero again, I think this wraps up this great great self-praising, no? Pero this okay tutorial on how to download install Orbiter, no? I hope this was a informative and entertaining intro to you for Orbiter. So thank you for watching and gagawa ulit tayo ng another video na more complex installations. We will be adding yun nga yung Direct 3D 9 for enhanced graphics, the faster graphics, And we might also install, let's say, an add-on that yung Altea Aerospace, maganda yon para makita nyo the process by which we add an add-on into Orbiter. Thank you for watching. And I hope na your own downloading, installing, and running Orbiter will be smooth sailing. Thank you.